In PowerCLI, we work with lots of different types of objects, such as VM objects, host objects, data store objects. And if you have one of those objects, you can ask PowerCLI to tell you what information do we have about this object. The thing is, by default, you're only going to see some of the information stored in that object. So what we're going to be taking a look at this video is how to find out what all the information is in your object and how to select the specific pieces of information that you want. Let's go take a look at that in the lab environment. Here's a command that we ran in the previous video. $ESXi06 creates a variable. We're setting the value of that variable equal to an object that's being returned by Get-VMHost. In this particular case, we're saying Get-VMHost-name and the name of the ESXi server that we're interested in. Now, if we simply type $ESXi06 and hit enter, we will see information that's coming from the object that's stored in that variable. But notice when we do so that we only see the default information. There could be considerably more information in this particular object. And if you want to, you can select just the pieces of information that you want. But before you do any selecting, you first need to know how to find out what properties are stored in this object. Well, in general, to find out what properties are stored in an object, you can say $ESXi06 in this case. Again, that is a variable that's holding an ESXi server in this particular case. If you pipe that through get-member, this is going to give us information about all the methods and properties in that object. As you can see up top, we have information about the methods accessible through this object. We'll talk about methods later on in this video series, but for right now, let's focus on the properties. Up above, the properties that are being displayed by default are name, connection state, power state, num CPU, CPU usage megahertz, and CPU total megahertz. But there's more information than just that in this object. For example, maybe you're interested in the amount of memory that's in that ESXi server. Well, as you can see, we have multiple properties here that will report information about memory in different unit sizes. Let's do what we did before. We're going to say $ESXi06 to indicate we want to see information for the host object that's in that variable. But this time, instead of displaying the default information, let's display precisely the properties that we want. To do so, we're going to say pipe select-object. By the way, you can shorten that to simply select. And then you specify the properties that you're interested in. So for example, maybe I want to know the name of each ESXi server, and perhaps I want to know what model of server that is. So is this a Dell server? Is it an HP server? Let's find out what it is in my lab environment. If we hit enter, you'll notice that I have just this one ESXi server in the variable, so we're only getting information about that one, but I can tell that the manufacturer of that particular ESXi server is a company called VMware. Actually, that's not a physical server, it's a virtual host. If you know what nested ESXi is, that's why this is reporting VMware here. But you might imagine it saying something instead like Dell or HP or IBM or so forth. So far in this video, we have been working with a variable that holds an object whose properties we want to select. But you can use the select commandlet in a variety of different ways. Let me show you another. Remember the get-vmhost commandlet? When you run that without any parameters, it returns information to you about all of the ESXi servers that your vCenter server knows about. Well, those are objects. Those objects have properties. We already know what the properties are from using get-member. Let's modify this command slightly. Again, we could say pipe get-member to see what the properties are, but we already know what they are. So why don't we say pipe select-object, or just simply select, followed by the information that we want. And again, why don't we do name and model, and you'll discover when I hit enter here that all 6 of my ESXi servers are virtualized hosts from a company called VMware. Now to be clear here, this select-object commandlet is not a PowerCLI commandlet. It's a generic PowerShell commandlet. So as you brush up on PowerShell, make certain that you read in your PowerShell book or your PowerShell course or however you're learning about PowerShell, make certain that you study exactly all the things that you can do with the select-object commandlet. Now we've got lots more to talk about in this video series, and what's coming up next is a discussion about how to use PowerCLI commandlets to manage your vSphere clusters. So click on that video and I'll see you there.